For years, there had been whispers, quiet, persistent, and impossible to silence. The names Amelia Warner and Dakota Johnson were never meant to be spoken in the same sentence, yet somehow, Hollywood made sure they always were. One was Jamie Dornan's wife, private, graceful, the woman who stood beside him long before the world knew his name. The other was his on-screen soulmate, the woman whose chemistry with him was so powerful that millions believed it had to be real. And between those two worlds stood Jamie Dornan himself, torn between loyalty, love, and endless speculation. For almost a decade, the story refused to die. The 50 Shades of Grey trilogy had left a mark deeper than anyone expected. Fans couldn't separate Christian Grey and Anastasia Steele from Jamie and Dakota. Their connection on screen was undeniable, electric, emotional, even tender. They trusted each other completely during some of the most vulnerable scenes ever filmed, and that trust looked a lot like love. Meanwhile, Amelia watched from the sidelines, quiet but aware. She had always been the pillar of calm in Jamie's chaotic world, a musician, a mother, and the guardian of their private life. But as Jamie's fame grew, so did the rumors. Articles compared her to Dakota. Tabloids claimed jealousy, distance, and even resentment. For years, Amelia said nothing. She believed silence was strength. But silence has a way of breeding misunderstanding. It wasn't Dakota who started the tension, it was the media. Every interview, every photograph, every moment between Jamie and Dakota became fuel for endless speculation. Was there more to their bond than friendship? Was Amelia secretly heartbroken behind closed doors? By 2018, the tension had reached its peak. At public events, Jamie appeared distracted. Dakota seemed guarded. Amelia, absent. Fans began to whisper about an invisible wall between them. Two women linked by one man and a story they never asked to be part of. But the truth was more complex, and more human. Behind the scenes, Jamie was trying to hold everything together. He adored Amelia, the mother of his children, but he also cared deeply for Dakota as a friend and creative partner. To him, their connection was sacred, something built on mutual respect, not romance. But Hollywood isn't kind to nuance. Jamie was exhausted, a close source revealed. He wanted the noise to stop. He was tired of feeling like every kind gesture toward Dakota was being twisted into something it wasn't. And he was tired of seeing Amelia hurt by stories that weren't true. Then came the turning point. In a press interview during one of his film promotions, Jamie was once again asked about the rumored tension between Amelia and Dakota. For a brief moment, he hesitated. Everyone expected him to brush it off, to smile and move on, as he always did. But this time, something in his expression changed. He leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "You know," he said slowly, "I think people forget that the three of us are human beings. Amelia is the person who keeps me grounded. Dakota is one of the most generous people I've ever worked with. There's no feud. There never was. The only thing that's real is the respect I have for both of them." It wasn't defensive. It wasn't rehearsed. It was honest, raw and final. That statement, though simple, rippled through Hollywood. For the first time, Jamie wasn't hiding behind politeness. He was putting an end to the narrative that had haunted all three of them for years. But even as his words made headlines, something deeper was happening behind closed doors. According to insiders, Jamie had already spoken privately with both women before the interview. He wanted to clear the air once and for all, not as a celebrity, but as a man who loved two people in very different ways. Jamie didn't want them to be hurt anymore, a source close to him said. He told them both the same thing, that he valued their place in his life and that he wanted peace. And for the first time in years, both Amelia and Dakota listened. Dakota was reportedly emotional when she heard what Jamie said. She knew how hard he had fought to protect his family and his friendship with her at the same time. Amelia, though cautious, appreciated his honesty. She finally understood that Dakota was never the enemy, one insider explained. She realized Jamie's love for her didn't need defending anymore. By the time the interview aired, the tone had shifted. The tension that had once hung over them began to fade, replaced by understanding. Still, there was one more piece to this story, one final act of closure that would seal the peace between Amelia and Dakota forever. Because what Jamie did next wasn't just an interview move, it was a gesture from the heart. After Jamie's interview aired, something remarkable happened. The noise stopped. For years, Amelia Warner and Dakota Johnson had been trapped in the same narrative, the wife and the co-star, the real world and the fantasy. Two women who never asked to be compared but were forced to live under the same shadow. But for the first time, Jamie Dornan's honesty cut through the chaos and gave both women something they hadn't had in a long time: peace. Still, there was unfinished business. In the days following his statement, Jamie reached out privately to both Amelia and Dakota. It wasn't a public relations move or a carefully scripted moment. It was something much more personal, a gesture of reconciliation. According to insiders, Jamie invited both women to a private charity event in London, one that supported children's mental health, a cause all three deeply cared about. It wasn't about appearances, it was about connection. Jamie wanted to show the world, but more importantly, show them, that everything was okay, one close source revealed. When Amelia arrived at the venue, she looked radiant but nervous. She hadn't seen Dakota in years, at least, not outside the headlines. Dakota arrived later, simple and elegant as ever, calm but cautious. And then, standing in the middle of the room, was Jamie, the bridge between them. Witnesses say the air was thick with emotion when their eyes met. There were no dramatic scenes, no words at first, just a quiet acknowledgement between two women who had been unfairly pitted against each other for almost a decade. Jamie approached with his familiar, reassuring smile. "You both made me look far better than I deserve," he joked lightly. The tension broke instantly. Amelia laughed softly, Dakota smiled, and suddenly, the ice that had built for years began to melt. A guest later described the moment as unbelievably human. "They weren't rivals," he said. "They were just two women who had both been part of the same story. A story written by the world, not by them." During the evening, Amelia and Dakota shared a quiet conversation away from the cameras. No one knows exactly what was said, but an insider close to Jamie later shared, "It was emotional. There were tears, laughter, even a hug at the end." They both understood that the past wasn't worth holding on to anymore. That hug would become symbolic, not of friendship necessarily, but of forgiveness. When the media caught wind of the event, photos quickly surfaced. One image showed Amelia, Dakota, and Jamie standing together, smiling, relaxed, unguarded. For fans who had followed the years of speculation and imagined hostility, it was almost surreal. The trio looked peaceful, united, and completely free from the weight of the past. The internet reacted instantly. "Finally, closure," one fan wrote. Another commented, "You can feel the calm in their faces. This is what healing looks like." Even entertainment outlets known for stirring drama called it the moment that ended one of Hollywood's most persistent rumors. But for Jamie, this was never about optics, it was about truth. In a later interview, when asked how he managed to bring both women together, Jamie smiled humbly. "I didn't bring them together," he said. "They did that themselves. I just gave them the space to remember what really matters: kindness, respect, and the past that made us who we are." His voice softened when he added, "People like to believe there's always conflict in Hollywood, but sometimes, there's just misunderstanding. And once you clear that up, all that's left is gratitude." It was a statement that resonated far beyond gossip. Fans admired his emotional maturity, how he handled years of pressure without turning it into bitterness. One tweet read, "Jamie Dornan just showed the world how real men deal with drama, not with ego, but with empathy." Since that day, Amelia and Dakota have maintained quiet mutual respect. They don't attend events together, but neither avoids the other anymore. In interviews, Dakota has described Jamie as a forever friend, and Amelia as a woman of grace. Amelia, too, once told a magazine that she and Dakota share more in common than people realize. And Jamie? He remains at peace, no longer the man caught in the middle, but the man who helped two strong, remarkable women find closure. During a charity gala months later, he reflected on it once more. We all went through something that changed us. I think people forget that the world watching can be the hardest part. But time heals, love heals, and sometimes, just telling the truth heals the most. He smiled, then added softly, "They're both extraordinary. I'm lucky to have had them in my life, in very different, but equally meaningful ways." And just like that, the story that had fueled a decade of rumors ended not with scandal, but with serenity. Amelia Warner and Dakota Johnson, no longer the whispered rivals of tabloid fantasy, but two women connected by empathy, not envy. And Jamie Dornan, the man who, through honesty and courage, finally gave them all the one thing Hollywood rarely allows: closure. Because sometimes, the most powerful endings aren't dramatic at all, they're peaceful.